Right, so what can we calculate with the central limit theorem? Right? So let's take some data that we have. In 2004, Facebook reported that the mean number of Facebook friends for an individual was 17.5 and had a standard deviation of 90.54. Right, so let's also assume that Chifaru's friends are pretty typical, right, and follow this overall trend. So we can ask, if Chifaru takes a sample of 50 of her friends, what's the probability that they'll have a mean of more than 200 Facebook friends? Right, so how do we do this? Well, we're over 30 for our sample size. So we know that the sample means are going to come from a standard normal distribution with a mean of 175.5. And the sample standard deviation is going to be shrunk by the square root of the number of data points. Okay, so Chifaru has 50 friends in this first sample. So the standard deviation is going to be 90.57 divided by the square root of 50. This gives a sample standard deviation of 12.81. So this sample will come from a normal distribution with mean of 175.5 and a standard distribution of 12.81. So what's the probability that this mean is going to be greater than 200? Well, if we have a TI-84 calculator, we can do a normal CDF with the bottom value at 200, the upper value at 1 times 10 to the 99th, mean of 175.5, and the standard deviation for the sample of 12.81. So this has a probability of 0.0279, about 2.8% chance that this sample will show more than 200 Facebook friends. So let's do another quick one. Let's change the number of Facebook friends we have and see what changes. So what's the probability that a sample of 86 of Chifaru's Facebook friends have a mean of more than 200 Facebook friends? All right. Well, the thing that changes is the sample standard deviation. It's our 90.57, our population standard deviation. We divide it by our square root of the number of data points, and now this is going to come from a standard normal distribution with a standard deviation of 9.77. And so it's going to have a probability of more than 200, mean 175.5, standard deviation of 9.77. This probability is going to be 0.0061, right? So 0.61%. It's less than a percent. That's going to be pretty small that it's going to be in that region. Okay? There's a chance that it could be in there, but it's pretty small. We also know that if we know the mean and standard deviation, we can do some calculations about where scores are, where the values are for certain percentiles. So let's take a sample of 42 of Chifaru's friends. What would be the 75th percentile for our sample means, right? So 75% of the samples she would take would be less than this point. 25% of the samples would be greater. Okay? With 42 people in the sample, the sample standard deviation is 90.57 divided by the square root of 42. That would make that 13.98 for our sample standard deviation. And finding that score is going from, the area left under the curve to get a value. So this is going to be our inverse norm on the TI-84. Mean of 175.5, sample standard deviation of 13.98. And this comes out to be 184.93 Facebook friends. Right? She would expect that 75% of her samples would be 184 or less, and about 25% of the samples would be about 185 or more. Okay? All right, so give those a look, and I will see you in class.